Hey, Roberto, hey, thank you so much for being here and willing to present to our group. Another fellow Nuevo Mexicano, so gracias, Roberto. Roberto H. Valdez y Herrera is an ethnic Nuevo Mexicano and Hispanic descendant of settlers to New Mexico in the years 1598 and 1692. His interest is toponymy. The study of places, names has been an integral part of his academic pursuits. During New Mexico's 400th anniversary, he created color history map entitled La Colonia de Nuevo Mexico, I'm assuming. And again, thank you, Roberto. And obviously, well, I'm not obviously, but if you don't know, this has special interest to me because he's going to present on one of my ancestors, and he'll talk more about that. So it's not every day that someone makes a documentary about one of your ancestors. So that's kind of
No,
thrilling for us. And so with that, Roberto, I'll turn it over to you. And otra vez, gracias.
well, thank you very much. I appreciate being able to speak to all of you enthusiasts so far away. I'm speaking to you from Española, New Mexico,
Oh, nice.
and I'm right in the center of the centroid of where many of your ancestors arrived to in 1598, 1692. I live right across the river from one of the three original villas or chartered towns that were set up in New Mexico during a stretch of time in the late 17th and early 18th centuries, and that is Santa Cruz de la Cañada. The other two are our capital, Santa Fe, La Villa de Santa Fe, and then the third is La Villa de Albuquerque. And these chartered towns being on the frontier, as life on the frontier, as we know, involves cultural mixing, contact, and conflict. So one of the things that happened is during my many excursions into study of history, is I began to see that, well, this would be an interesting topic when I ran into a certain book. Let me bring up the PowerPoint presentation now to show you some of what I'm talking about.
Here,
Let's see.
let me do it. Wow.
Let me make a. Your screen sharing is paused. Hang on a moment. Let's see. Stop.
I can see it. Oh,
You can see it? Let me try it
yeah.
again. Let me try it again. Okay. Share. All right. All right. All right. Oops. Okay. There we go. First off, we when we completed the video, we entered it into a contest. Let me know if you're not seeing what I'm seeing here. It was the Governor's Cup Film Festival. It was a regional prize. Regional prizes were granted, and then there was a final playoff, shall we call it, in Santa Fe in that year of 2004. So we had our I think it was in August of 2004 or September, somewhere in there, that we completed the video and then entered into the contest, and yeah, we won. There was quite a number of participants, some of them quite good, and being novices into the videography field, it made us quite proud. You'll see the two other fellows. The one on the left is Roger Salas. He was our industrial video instructor at the college and gave us a lot of pointers. The one with the longest beard, the one with the medium beard, that's my partner Dennis Chavez, who partnered with me to make this video, and lives nearby with his family in El Duende. El Duende means the elf. The Roger Salas, he lives living in Truchas, which means the trout, named after the Rio de las Truchas. As introduced, I am a have great interest in the study of place names called toponymy. This is the book that I encountered on my many readings, and it's different than some, because rather than the historian purely interpreting the history, it gives you the transcription of the actual record in, of course, Roman font, and it's in Spanish. And I had a chance to read this to my grandmother and my uncle, who were all fluent in Nuevo Mexicano, the dialect of New Mexico. Went to the local town called Coyote, where they lived, and sat down, and we were and I read them this narrative, and it fascinated them quite a lot. Of course, they understood most of it. The language has changed over time. It is, of course, this is the early 18th century, but there were a lot of phrases and methods in its Spanish that they understood, that we understood. So it was quite interesting to them. If I can captivate the attentions of my grandmother and uncle for an evening like they used to do 100 years ago in a parlor, reading narrative stories, poetry, and so forth, then I know this is quite an interesting and compelling story. Well, it, of course, compelled me to go and visit the places in question. So this expedition took place in 1705, but the real fascination was to visit the area where the Navajos lived during the time period of post-Pueblo Revolt, 1680. Archaeologists have found things dated to about 1680-ish, 1682. In the aftermath, many Pueblo Indians were refugees due to the internal civil war-like conflicts that were occurring in the Rio Grande Valley and other places, and fled to join the Navajo. Now, the Navajo were four main tribes when they started out, is what they say, and they were patriarchal. That is, men were head of households. And during this time of conflict, 12 years between 1680 and 1692, when the Spanish removed themselves to the region of El Paso, this left a vacuum of power with lots of conflict, in addition to drought that very powerful one hit in 1685. So a lot of the some of the Pueblo people fled the region and joined the Navajo in this region. And this is when they believe that the various other clans that are within the Navajo tribe arose, because they're named after peculiar associations with respective pueblos. The San Juan clan, the Santo Domingo clan, et cetera, et cetera. And they brought in a culture that was matriarchal, or in other words, the head of household becomes the women. And this, of course, lives to this day. Navajo were at one time like the Apaches, where men were head of households, and they started to transform into a different type of culture, thanks to the strong influence of the Pueblo Indians. When the Spanish returned to New Mexico in 1692 and 93, there still remained vestiges of the conflicts of prior years. There was another uprising in 1696. And then were these pernicious and problematic raids that were occurring by gangs of Navajo warriors who would sweep into the Rio Grande Valley and raid the pueblos and raid the Hispanic settlements. So it was during the August of 1705 that an expedition was set up. The campaign penetrated into the Navajo homeland, which is today abandoned. It is mostly the San Juan Basin oil and gas field. Very few Navajo live except in the very margin of it. Most of them would flee in several decades later to their present locations, as you see them now on a typical map looking up the Navajo reservation. So they moved westward, and they were moved westward not by conflict with the Spanish and with the Pueblo Indians so much as with their neighbors to the north, the Utah Indians. from whence we get the name Utah. So this is the San Juan Basin, a geographic area that is rich in oil and gas and has a very large coal bed that has only begun to be touched. The resource is immense. When the Spanish entered into this, what we see on this purple blotch on the state of New Mexico, the eastern margin of it is the area that we will be dealing with. And they encountered what they called casitas, and about 2,000 to 4,000 Navajo were living in this region. Here we see Cañón Largo. It's a very wide canyon with a meandering and very sandy arroyo that during rainstorms, this region becomes rather impassable. It's best entered in either in the waning days of winter, or you wait for the spring runoff to be over, and then you can go back in around now, May, June, because of the bad roads. We normally associate Navajo with sand painting. And in this case, it's surprising to many to see that they were into petroglyphs, just like the ancestral Puebloans, and in building houses in square shapes and forms rather than hogans. In this region, you'll see a combination of both hogans and squarish buildings, torreones, which were used by the Pueblo Indians and Hispanics as sort of as defensive towers, is what they're called, torreones. And these defensive towers are basically immobilized tanks. It's a place you run and hide during attacks. And in this case, my picture on the lower left shows me by a porthole that is used to shoot either arrows or more preferably guns out of. The Navajo did get a hold of firearms, the crudest firearms that were at the time called the arcabuz. They found in one of the ruins near Farmington the ammunition was hematite globules, or little black rocks, little brown black rocks, instead of bullets made of lead like we normally associate bullets. And it may have been an early flintlock or a matchlock. Now they only found one, of course, that I know of, but there could have been far more, considering all of these little portholes. These firearms take very long. Really, they're called black powder arms. They take, if you're good at it, you can load one 3 times a minute, but they typically take longer for the unskilled. Let's see, I think this is where, yeah, I wanted to show you, all of you, this. So this is the edge of the northern state of New Mexico. You'll see this in the video that is upcoming shortly. The area between Espanola and Farmington is the focus of this video, where we get to see the cultural remains of the Navajo homeland that was called Dineta. Dine is the Navajo word for themselves, and it directly translates the people. And they were in earnest first documented as Navajo in I'm trying to remember the year. It first appears in a memoir dated 1632 by Fray Benavides, who did a tour of duty as a Franciscan friar here in Nuevo Mexico, and he documented and facilitated peace between these warriors who were out doing raids and the Pueblo of Santa Clara, which is nearby me. It's only about, as I look at it, it's about a half a mile south of me where I live. So the people of Santa Clara were quite disquieted by the presence of warriors out in the llano, or the fields, and Frey writes in his narrative that he facilitated peace between them. One of the things that the people of Santa Clara really wanted to do was go out into the mountains and access piedra lumbre, an important substance, a white powdery rock substance called rock alum that was used to facilitate dyeing of blankets, both wool and cotton. So he writes not only about the origin of the name Piedra Lumbre, the Valle de la Piedra Lumbre, which is north of Abiquiu. He also documents the origin of the name of Navajo, and he writes it as Apaches de Navajo. The Navajo people are actually Apache. Apache is a general catch-all for a type of linguistic group, what we would call today Athabascans, whose origin is from Alaska and the Yukon of Canada. And in around the 1450, the first arrivals of migrants came from that distant land into the region, and so they arrived very shortly before the Spanish, with some Apache groups not arriving until after the Spanish were here. That's an interesting discussion also as to what constitutes a native as well. A native being a person who has been in a geographic area a long time and dependent upon that geographic area. So for this reason, the Navajo were inhabiting this area that is shown here because it is west of the main inhabitants of the Rio Grande Valley, the Pueblos. They would go and raid them, steal cattle and so forth. And there's nobody to talk to. You can't go to the authorities and say, hey, you control these young men, control these clans, these tribes that are the culprits. There is no unified government to handle law enforcement. So it is handled through military campaigns of those who have been offended. In this case, it was going to be 300, a party of 300 Pueblo Indians and 100 Spanish. Let's see. With that, let's begin the video. I present to you La Provincia de Navajo.
Video.
It's probably delayed. Let's wait a moment. Here we go. You may turn the sound up if you can.
The bloody war, which was newly declared now 2 years ago, the ones closest to the province, mountains, and villages of Navajo, which by their closeness to our settlements, have carried out many thefts, invasions, and killings since long ago. The township of the Villa of Santa Fe, 13 October 1705. Yo, el maestre de campo, Roque de Madrid, de orden del señor gobernador, pasa a hacerle la guerra a sangre y fuego a los enemigos de nación Apache Navajo.
Greetings, I'm Roberto Valdez. New Mexico is full of awesome landscapes. I am a Spanish New Mexican, and I would like to take you on an exploration of my land and the heritage of its people. We are on the eastern end of the San Juan Basin, in Rio Arriba and San Juan counties. This is an area rich in the resources that fuel our energy-driven world, such as coal, natural gas, and oil. It is traversed by several canyons. Some of them are the Rio Navajo, Cañón de la Jara, Cañón Gobernador, and Cañón Largo. However, we're here to explore things of more historical significance. This is the area the Navajo called their homeland in the 17th and 18th centuries. Their raids into the Rio Grande Valley brought the Spanish and Pueblo Indians out here on punitive expeditions. Join us as we explore what the Navajo called Dineta and what the Spanish called La Provincia de Navajo. The Navajo homeland of the 18th century is called Dineta. Beginning in the 19th century, it was called Las Tapiacitas. because this area is full of ravines and cliffs. The Jicarilla Apache were settled on a reservation on its east side in 1887. Although they are distant relatives of the Navajo, they came here from eastern New Mexico. They call themselves Diné, meaning the people. Yet they are more commonly known as Navajo. So why do we use this word? For answers, we must go back in time to where it first appears in writing.
De la jurisdicción de Gila, from the Gila jurisdiction, when it hits the province of the Apaches of Navajo. Even though they are the same Apache nation as the before-mentioned one, they are subject and subordinate to another chief captain, and have a distinct way of living. And these of Navajo are very great workers of the land, for that is what Navajo means. Great planted fields. Friar Alonso de Benavides, 1630.
So we had the name Apachu Navajo, or as the Spanish said it, Apaches de Navajo, which essentially meant the enemy who dry farm these arroyos. In September of 1743, a squadron of Spanish New Mexican citizens, soldiers, and Pueblo Indians passed through the province of the Navajo. They were on an expedition of exploration and were guided by a Christian Apache. The Navajo were at peace with the Spanish and Pueblos at this time, and even traded with the Pueblos. Few outsiders realized that the Navajo were not one united people with one leader and government. Some Navajo kept the peace, others marauded on occasion. One Pueblo could be their friend, another their enemy, or it could change the other way around. The Spanish, who visited the Navajo, found them living on the defensive from another tribe, neighbors to the north, commonly known as the Ute, or as we call them, Yutas.
Dichos indios viven en las cumbres de las mesas, en sus casitas que tienen de palo, piedra y de zoquete, porque les hacen guerra los Yutas. Juan Vigil, Santa Fe, 1745.
The Spanish called them casitas, or little houses. Most date from 1689 to 1752 in this area. Archaeologists call them pueblitos.
Pueblito simply means little pueblo. The term has come to be synonymous with a stone, multi-roomed, and sometimes even multi-storied structure, constructed either by Navajos or by Navajos under the influence of Pueblos.
Here in the side canyons of Cañón Gobernador is Three Corn Pueblito, one of the many little pueblitos that sit atop well-defended, high rocky places. In the little rooms you can still see the original interior plaster. There are passageways, storage bins, and intact ceilings. There are also little windows from which its inhabitants could defend themselves against the enemy.
It's probably the best example of why the cradle board was important. The site is a very precarious situation, and so you need some other mechanism to keep the kids from falling off the edge.
A prime example of defense against parties of raiding Utah Indians coming from the north is Old Fort Pueblito. It features a defensive fortress-like wall. Within this plaza are the huts of the people, known as forked stick hogans or chozas in Spanish. It's several poles put together, then covered with branches and earth. This is a remnant of an original that is still standing. It's about 250 years old. And in Navajo tradition, the doorways face east to greet the morning sun. This is Truby's Tower. Torreones were a safe place where people could seek shelter from raids and kidnappings.
That's probably as close to the concept of a torreon as any site, because it is a singular unit, almost exclusively for defense.
Most pueblitos had excellent views of their surroundings. Some even had clear lines of sight to other pueblitos across the canyons and down the canyons. In this way, perhaps, the people could warn each other through the use of smoke. In this case, to the pueblito of Las Tapiacitas. 300 feet above the canyon floor on an unlikely arid banco is this pueblito called Tapiacitas, sometimes mispronounced as Tapacito. What is remarkable about this is that it dates to 1690 and is one of the earliest known pueblito sites in this region. It's in a remarkable state of preservation, and this crawl space leads into one of the rooms that still has an intact ceiling. You can still see the original ceiling hole for the chimney. The ceiling is covered with split wood called rajas, over which are cedar bark and mud. It has latillas that serve as a pole rack, and you can still see the original whitewashing plaster.
It's an enigma. It's something that is not technically a pueblito as I have just defined it. And this is a couple of things. Number one, it's much more substantially built. Thick walls, big beams. In fact, they overbuilt it. For the thickness of the walls and the beams, it should have been a 4-story pueblo.
Since it is so dry in these canyons, the reason why a pueblito is built here is nearby. Tinajas, or tanques, with hundreds of gallons of water. Here on a banco above Cañón Largo is preserved for us one of the finest examples of a hooded fireplace. It dates to the 1720s. An idea brought to New Mexico by the Spanish, it was brought to the Navajo by the Pueblo Indian refugees. In the early 18th century, the Spanish and the Pueblo Indians organized themselves on expeditions to punish some Navajo that had raided the villages of the Rio Grande Valley. It brought them into what was to them unknown lands, events that may have been recorded here in Cañón Cuervo. With this, among the petroglyphs, horsemen, riders on horseback, with hats and wielding swords. In 1705, Governor Cuervo appointed Roque Madrid to command 3 campaigns that year. Although the one in August is the least bloody, it is the one we know most about. Because of the journal that is preserved for us, we can follow the day-by-day events.
Yo, el maestre de campo, I, Field Marshal and Principal Military Leader, Roque Madrid, by order of the Lord Governor, go forth to make war by fire and sword on the enemy, Apache Navajo Nation.
It was a journey of over 300 miles, beginning in San Juan Pueblo and ending in Bernalillo. 100 soldiers and citizens and 300 Pueblo Indians attempted an element of surprise by choosing a roundabout way into the Navajo homeland. They encountered and captured 2 Indian women. They were separated and interrogated about how far the Navajo villages were. They said they knew nothing. They had left the Navajo to gather herbs. They were alone and their husbands were hunting deer. This happened somewhere near the present-day town of Chama. On the 10th of August, they consulted a map. Jerónimo and Pamuje were 2 Pueblo Indians that suggested a route that the enemy would least expect any of them to take, and where the most defiant of the enemy lived, through the Rio Grande de Navajo, which none knew the location of. Despite the objection of some Jemez Indians that said that the country was too vast and rough, Roque ordered a march to find the river. In this country, some Apaches the Navajo spotted them. They left a line and crosses in the dirt, appealing to the invaders for peace. It was the 11th of August, 1705. Roque Madrid ordered everyone to mount fresh horses, and they attacked at dawn. They moved down this canyon, destroying cornfields and setting hogans on fire. Many Apache escaped to the tops of the mesas and shouted at them from there, out of reach. They then moved southward, destroying more cornfields and making assaults, the Navajo ambushing them all along the way. They then captured some women and children. They made their way, they reported, to a place called Los Peñoles, that is, a high rocky place, atop which the Navajo had fortified themselves. Some believe it may be this, also called Santos Peak. Roque Madrid writes of how the army was exhausted, how the horses were staggering with thirst, and how the Apaches from the heights were making fun of them. They clamored to heaven for water. A small cloud appeared, and then it began to rain. Roque Madrid writes, "We praised God." siege to the mesa, and the Navajos asked for peace. But during the night and into the next day, both sides attacked each other and counterattacked until by morning the Navajos had retreated to the very top, some falling off the ladder, and Pueblo Indians below scalped them. They hurled rocks over the cliff edge. Both sides fought each other with bows, arrows, lances, and muskets. Roque said their position was impossible to take. They were too strong in their peñon, so he abandoned the fight, and the Navajo wailed for their dead. The army moved south, Roque concerned for the great thirst afflicting his horses. But they searched and found water and cornfields which they destroyed. The Apaches of Navajo fell upon them without success, trying to drive them away. We're at the confluence of the Cañon Largo and Cañon de las Tapiacitas. It was here that on the 14th of August, 1705, Roque Madrid ordered 100 Pueblo warriors to secretly circle the mesa and attack the Navajo from behind, while from the front he distracted them with talk. He sent the army away so that it would look like they were retreating. He parleyed with the Apaches for hours because this country was so difficult to traverse. The Spanish and Pueblo Indians didn't appear on the top until hours later. Finally, a lookout sounded an alarm at the top of the mesa. All the Navajos began to run. Those from above and below attacked with lances, bows, arrows, and muskets. The Navajo ran for their lives, and the Pueblo took few prisoners. One man they captured and tied him up. The other end of the rope was held by a Pueblo. As they walked down the cliff edge, the Navajo prisoner threw himself over the cliff and pulled the Pueblo down with him to death. He was the only death among the Spanish and Pueblos. The expedition then made its way south. Here, the Spanish map from 1778 shows to a water source called the Ojo de Nuestra Señora. It is also known as Otero Ranch Spring. It was considered the southern boundary of where the Navajo lived in this region. Some believe this is the rock where Navajo left 14 crosses as a sign of peace to the passing army. Roque did not attack the Navajo of this place. They were at peace with the pueblos of Laguna and Acoma, and wrote, "So they'll know the Spanish make war with those who are their enemies, and keep safe those who say they are not." Like any people, the Navajo had criminal elements, some arising out of poverty and the need to survive. But the actions of a few brought suffering upon many innocent Navajo. In 1754, the governor of New Mexico wrote that he had helped facilitate peace between the Utah and the Navajo.
Han sido tan frecuentes los Utahs en castigar y hacen guerra a los navajoses que los han hecho desamparar la provincia. Tomás Cachupín, gobernador de Nuevo México, 12 de agosto de 1754.
By the 19th century, the Utah had pressured the Navajo to the south so much that the high mesas west of Lindrith, New Mexico, once the Navajo's realm, are here shown as the Heights of the Ute. Many of these sites I've taken you to are on public lands. Although you're free to visit and explore them, please use some common sense when you're around them. I hope you'll learn to appreciate New Mexico's rich history. Adios.
Good.
Well, thank you very much. Let me make a few comments, and then I can put it out there for questions. Let's see. I'm gonna go to my Zoom meeting and switch to my let's see, share screen. Share. All right. One moment, and here we go. All right, so a visit to them is a journey off of the highway quite a bit on washboard roads that serve the various oil and gas wells that are out here in this region here. It's not an easy way to get there, but there's for example, if you get on a website, just look up BLM, that is the Bureau of Land Management, and put in pueblitos, you'll get a hit to a web page, which will direct you to where these archaeological sites are located. And they're very undeveloped. It's like in the old days when I was growing up to see some archaeological sites, no paved trails, no visitor center. In fact, there's no brochure. You have to go already knowing about these places and what they're about ahead of time. There's academic literature on them, but the more simplified versions can be found at the Farmington Field Office of the BLM, which is located west of Farmington. Other than that, it was a pure adventure going out there to see these places. Let me see. Let me get back to my PowerPoint. Whoops. Hang on. Okay. Let me just verify. Is everybody seeing the pictures labeled Cañón Largo?
Yes.
Okay. So showing you these pictures again to refresh your minds on what the place looks like. This is a good place of adventure. No services out here. You get stuck, you have to figure out how to get yourself out, or flag down a passing Williams oil production truck to help you out. And by the way, they're infrequent, so we did get stuck in my dad's truck and had to dig ourselves out. And this was during the late spring runoff, so that's why I'm warning people away off of the place in April and May, early May, when these stream beds do have water in them. So the Navajo would plant corn in various places. They call them in Spanish milpas. Milpa is of Aztec Indian origin word, borrowed by the New Mexico Spanish dialect. And you could just put your seeds in the ground in the moist soil. The soil moisture endured into the early summer, and then you would get sky rainfall around late July and August. So you'll see on the petroglyphs the appearance of these corn plants as quite significant part of their cultural symbols. This is a map from 1883 done by the Wheeler Expedition. Wheeler Expedition endeavored to map large areas of the West, and in doing so, they mapped out this remote region, and I'll point out some of the names. So here are some of the names. Some of them did appear, some of them I think didn't appear very clearly on the video that we were seeing. So I'll point them out. This is Cañón La Jara. Jara means willow. So this is a canyon named after the moist bottom hosting willows. Then we have Gobernador. Now, Gobernador and the feminine Gobernadora refer to a kind of sagebrush, the big sage. We often call it chamizo hediondo, which means smelly bush, stinking bush. It's the one that's most aromatic. People enjoy it because it makes good incense, and it covers vast fields of the, even in Utah, of the basin and range desert. So gobernador is also another word referring to it because it's from the word govern, meaning it's very dominant over an area. Then we have Cañón Largo, which is barely visible there. Cañón Largo means long canyon. This is the longest of the canyons in the region which have ruins. You can just be driving along the bottom, following the oil and gas pipelines, and then off to the left on a cliff face, you'll see many petroglyphs and rock art. Up on the upper right of your screen is an arrow pointing to Las Tapiacitas. So these are dikes, or they form walls. You have plenty of them, of course, especially in the canyon country of Utah. They are dikes or fins, most commonly sandstone fins. And that is why the area is named and why the place name dominates so much in this region, Las Tapiacitas. However, there was some Anglo cowboys in the region of Cañón Largo, and they began to use the moniker Tapacito. It started to morph and change from the original Tapiacita. So that will make an appearance on the BLM maps that you might chance to look at if you find greater interest in this topic. Notice the word Utah, the way we spell it, U-T-A-H, but I have it spelled differently. And that is because in English we say EU, and in Spanish it's U. In order to make an EU, you have to add the letter Y, the Y, as they call it. So the original spelling on old documents is always Utah with a letter Y. And what it means, I think I cover that topic in a moment. Let's see. I think I wanted to move on to this at the moment. This is the route, which was shown briefly. When we did the video, I realized there was some little bits and pieces that went too fast or that were left out, and I changed format. I said, this can be a more educational more educational video than entertaining if I put in more information and people wanted to stop and pause and they're doing an essay for their college classes or whatever, because there's not a lot of information about this particular topic on YouTube. And so I added subtitles and I added this map, and this is from Google Earth. And of course, we see that the distance that was for them on the march was 289 miles as I measured it. Presumably, after their arrival in Bernalillo, the various parties dispersed to their respective places. So this took place in August of 1705. That big battle that was featured took place on August 13 of 1705. Let's see. Let me get out of here. Let me see. Okay, whoops. I may have inadvertently, let's see, screen sharing. Hang on. I may have inadvertently hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. All right. Can everybody see the map again?
Yes.
All right. Here is a list of people mentioned in the book, The Navajo in 1705. They have short biographies that you might be interested in. Antonio Alvarez Castrillon. Castrillon remains an unfamiliar name to many New Mexicans today as part of present-day genealogies. But you go back in time, you encounter many unusual surnames that are not today typical. You open the phone
Valdez,
book.
I'm seeing a black screen. I'm not sure if everyone else is.
Okay, hold on. It says stop share, and then I have to restart it. Let's see. Thank you for telling me, because that was a boo-boo on my part. Okay, let's try it again.
There, I can see it now.
Wonderful. Okay. Antonio Alvarez Castrillon, Cristobal de Ariano, Fray Agustin de Colina. So he would be one of the chaplains. Jeronimo Dirucaca, he was one of the Pueblo Indians. Josef Dominguez de Mendoza, Martin Garcia, Juan Griego, Alejo Gutierrez, Juan Roque Gutierrez, Miguel de Herrera, and Tomas de Herrera. I'm not sure which one of those two is my ancestor there. Tomas Lopez Holguin, Fray Francisco Jimenez, the famous Roque Madrid, also known as Roque de la Madrid. Then there's Jose Lopez Naranjo, whose illustration appears in the book on the right-hand side. What's significant about this gentleman is that he became culturally transformed, participating in the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. He later was one of those interviewed about the growing disquiet and civil wars that were occurring after the Spanish exited New Mexico. He then provided lots of information and was among those who the Pueblo Indians welcomed a percentage of them welcomed the Spanish back because of the civil unrest and the time of trouble during those 12 years. Josef Naranjo would later serve as governor, and I'm trying to remember the name. It was in Zuni Pueblo, and he would later be featured as, let's see if I can, let's see if my PowerPoint presentation will allow me to do this. There we go. So there's a large painting about 17 feet long and 4 feet high on display at our museum in New Mexico, the Palace of the Governors, the Casa Real in Santa Fe. It's on the plaza. This is considered one of the most valuable pieces of patrimony of New Mexico. It is several buffalo hides that have been brain tanned, sewn together to make this large, long painting. And on this painting, we see Josef Naranjo. This is shortly before his death, in, of all places, today's eastern Nebraska. He was involved in what they call the Villa Sur massacre of 1720, in which Santa Fe, hearing rumors of the French trading guns to the Indian nation of the Pawnee, they went out there to go investigate and warn off the French if they could find them. And on the morning of August, I'm trying to remember the date, it was close to or on August the 10th of 1720, the Pawnee and they say some French traders attacked the camp. And these two figures are shown attempting to rescue their comrades that are surrounded by Pawnee Indians, which are armed with metal axes and with even swords. Here, Josef Naranjo has donned 2 quivers, is holding spears, and he's leading Fray Juan Minguez, the chaplain or the priest of Albuquerque, into the fray in order for him to do the last rites on people who are dead or dying. So this is how he met his end. He was, in the beginning, a participant in the Pueblo Revolt to purge the Spanish, and ended up, ironically, dying in the name of the Christian faith. The next feature is Cristobal de la Serna, and they are a prominent surname even to this day in the Española Valley. Antonio Tafoya Altamirano, a last name that is not familiar to us today, but Tafoya is. Tafoya family surname dominates the people of nearby Santa Clara Pueblo. Mateo Trujillo, many Trujillos living in Chimayo. Antonio de Ulibarri and Juan de Ulibarri, featured in the video. One of my friends is an Ulibarri and a participant in our video. The Ulibarri name originates from the Basque, that is the north central part of Spain in the mountains. And one of the stereotypes of their appearance is the rosy-cheeked appearance of many of those people. Masses of them came to the north of Mexico. Oñate, for example, Juan de Oñate, our first governor, was a Basque. And genetic testing has turned up the predominance of Basque genetics, blood, in the people of northern Mexico and in New Mexico. I'm trying to remember, when I did a pie chart recently, it came out to something like 15% or something like that of the male DNA, which is considered large. Anyway, we have lastly Juan de Zamora. A lot of the Spanish who were already had blood in them of our forebears from the Valley of Mexico. We would call them Aztecs, but they call themselves Tenochca. And then, of course, you have to consider the primary allies of the Spanish were Tlaxcala, that accompanied the Spanish to Santa Fe and set up a village south of Santa Fe, where today's Roundhouse, our Capitol building, is in a neighborhood called Barrio de Analco, which is Analco was founded by the Mexicanos, by the Tlaxcala people, who were allies early on with Cortez and the conquest of Mexico. All of these influences create an indigenous people living in a geographic area, forces you, especially with the distance from resupply, no railroads, no shipping, except through overland. You become more and more dependent. And people, in this case, this painting comes from a door in nearby Santa Cruz de la Cañada, just 3 miles from where I live, and is now housed in the Museum of New Mexico at the International Folk Art Museum. And it shows a young man, showing off his race car. He's a bison hunter, and he's dressed in buckskins, moccasins, fringed leggings, and dun-colored clothing, which is buckskin, usually put over a dark smoke in order to give it a waterproofing quality, and a cap with a feather in it. Notice there's no stirrups on this horse, but there is a brand that resembles the typical brand of a Spanish owner. And of course, the bit has a lot of jingle bobs below the mouth. This is cultural transformation. This comes from an excerpt from the 1776 map of an expedition of Dominguez and Escalante, two frailes or friars that were searching for a route to California, passing through what we now call Utah. And in the map that is drawn by one of the expedition members, his name was Don Bernardo Miera y Pacheco, drew 4 figures here, where we see 2 on the left and 2 on the right, which are believed to be Spanish New Mexicans of the time period interacting with Indians of the time period, showing them cloth and other trade goods. Notice the one on the left has what appears to be a boina, a cap, or a gorra, a cap, and holding in his hand a rabbit or jackrabbit. These people, of course, were later to settle and expand the frontier out of Abiquiu, New Mexico. In this case, this is a photograph taken in El Coyote. I have the year as 1911, and my ancestor is in and among them, and I have problems judging the exact year of this photograph. He's on the extreme right, shown with a what they call pecheras or overalls or bib overalls on the extreme right. So he looks around 16, maybe he's 15 years old, and I'm trying to estimate his age there. His name is Juan Bautista Valdez because in the year that he was born, 1892, his father was going to court, the U.S. Court of Private Land Claims, to try to convince the court to validate the Juan Bautista Valdez land grant. His grandfather. So he named his son Juan Bautista Valdez, to, I guess, perhaps for good luck. But you see here in this photograph a who's who of who's in the village of El Coyote. They are likely preparing for a feast day and have brought a calf to be barbecued for the whole population. They've also planted a few green trees. I have yet to find out exactly what it is, if it was the Dia de San Juan or some other day like that, which would be in June. But if you go to Coyote today, we have red soil there, just like in Utah, and at least the south part of your state. And these frontier people are going to be the primary drivers off into the northwest, and will be in the diaspora that has reached your city, Salt Lake City, to this day. So perhaps some of you watching right now, your ancestors are among this crowd staring back at us. The New Mexico dialect, I'll end with this, has to be addressed because it often, when I was making the video, I made it a point to try to, in a lot of videos that I did, to try to include the Spanish. People need to hear the place names as they were originally pronounced as best as possible. In this map, we see one example of one word, and that is the word for peas. Peas, garden peas. The southern 1/3 of New Mexico is heavily influenced by the dialect of Mexico, which they use the word chicharro, or I'm sorry, chicharo. It's chicharo. And in the northern 2/3, we hear the word alverjon. Alverjon is an example of the peculiar words that are found in the New Mexico dialect and have been mapped out in this book from the Spanish language by Garland and Vigil. I'm sorry, Bills and Vigil. It's a linguistic atlas in which they asked, I think, about 300 or 200 and some participants to answer questions about what word do they prefer to use for various nouns that they were presented in English. And lo and behold, in a map like this, you can clearly see that there is a peculiar dialect in the north of New Mexico and the south of Colorado, but we consider southern Colorado as just a sawed-off part of New Mexico. With that, I turn it over to questions that any of you may have. Let me exit my presentation here.
This is Albert Garcia. I had a question on the picture that's hanging in the governor's palace.
Yes.
It looked like they, Navajo, the Native American, looked like he'd been shot in the leg and in the back, and also the friar had an arrow sticking in him too. So I guess that's when they died, and I'm not sure if the friar also died during that battle.
Out.
Let's see if I can
Just do stop share.
Oh,
okay.
It says stop share. Okay. Or well, like his question
right there.
This,
okay, right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you can see the on the Native American there in the center, he has an arrow right in his leg and looks like one in the back, and also the friar has one sticking in him.
I should probably show. Let's see if I can show another picture here. Let's see if this is the one. I'm going to show this one right here. Share. Okay.
We're at 10:30 right now too.
Okay, I'll bring it to a close then. So this is the kind of cueta that they were wearing. It's of several layers of buckskin. So he is probably shot in an arrow shot into his coat, but maybe it hasn't fully penetrated into his flesh.
Okay.
So that's what this is about. This is basically the early Kevlar. Any others real quick? And we got to wrap it up, I think.
Roberto,
yes.
This is amazing because my family are from Tapecitas and Coyote.
You're kidding.
No, so we need to talk.
Oh, nice. All right.
I was just in tears hearing the history.
Nice. I always like to learn more about what people know about a place.
Yeah, my family Valdez also.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
You want to do a stop share, Roberto?
Beg pardon?
Do a stop share.
Okay.
So on that picture that you had of the people, do you have names to them? Who are those people in that photo?
The ones in my video or the ones in the history?
No, in the presentation itself.
Yeah, at the tail end, there's it was stopped short because it's boring, just a list of credits. But yes, they're in the credits. All of their names. You can access this video on YouTube as La Provincia de Navajo.
I'll send that to you, Melinda, and you can send it out to the whole group. I have the link.
Roberto, I have a question. The book that you're referring to, the Navajo in 1705, Roque Madrid's campaign, is that something that's accessible like on Amazon, and is it in English or in Spanish?
Last I checked, it is easy to find. It is in English. Within it is a chapter that is all in Spanish in the original transcript, but it's fully translated into English. And
Okay.
I had a lot of fun seeing how they said things in those days in my studies of linguistics.
Mhm. And to this day, they still talk like this because my great aunts, before they passed, I heard them talking, and it's no language that you hear nowadays. So it's kind of interesting to hear how the dialect has changed a little bit.
Yes, it does maintain a sing-songy kind of rhythm to it, which is very noticeable when you're among, for example, Mexican nationals. I work at a high school, and always have fun bantering back and forth, figuring out what they're saying and telling them how we say it here.
Mhm.
But we tend to elongate the last E.
Yes, this is true. Okay, hopefully I'll get some time, and maybe, if you can send your contact info, so maybe one time we can communicate with each other, and I can go over what my parents had gone through. I mean, had passed along to me and to you as well.
Very, very good. Now I should also that was mentioned briefly, a map, and I guess all of you should see what it looks like. I'm going to walk to it. This map is one that I made. It's called La Colonia de Nuevo Mexico, 1596 to 1607. And it features the route that the first settlers took to New Mexico in 1598. It also features the typical clothing and dress of the persons of that time, and narratives of what they did along the way. We have a good narrative of what they did day by day as they got here, and then the explorations they made out to today's eastern Kansas and today's Gulf of California. So I sell this map at certain stores here in the state of New Mexico. Believe it or not, my best customer is it's Jeronimo Springs Museum in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. So I've sold it to a few of the members of GSHA who are here more locally in New Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
I made it for the 400th anniversary back in 1998.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a treasure. That would be.
So how, if someone wanted to purchase one, how would they go about? Do you have a link or?
Yeah, there's no internet link. You write me through the old time mail, and then I send one out. I sell them for $20.
Okay.
Yep, we need to have that. I definitely want to have that as well.
I understand you're going to be at a meeting in August here in New Mexico. Is that correct? A regional GSHA meeting?
The national.
The national. Oh, okay. Nice. All right.
Are you going to be there?
I haven't, I'm not a member, so I wasn't even considering it. It was kind of even spontaneous that I was invited to speak to all of you. And I really enjoy this kind of topic, and I'm a genealogist myself.
That's awesome. I am so glad that I was able to meet on this meeting, to meet with you.
Membership's only $25.
Good.
Right now.
It's on sale.
Now they're going to raise the dues.
Yeah.
You're on mute, John. You're on mute, John.
Oh, yeah. John's on mute. He's got a slash through his little microphone.
There you go. Anyway, if you go and you pay the $25 to be a member, it comes out about the same if you're going to the conference. If that $25 can be used for that. I remember you, Roberto, in New Mexico at a conference, and you're the one that gave me the saying, we didn't cross the border crossed us, that I've used quite a bit.
Oh,
Thank you.
That's a popular one. Yeah.
Well, you're the first one I heard say it.
Any other questions or comments before we move on to our business meeting? All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Brenda.
You're more than welcome to stick around for our business meeting if you'd like.
Okay. I would say, well, I'll leave, but because I have other business, but my contact information, you're free to share it with your membership.
Okay.
Regarding
Okay.
the how to access the YouTube video if they want to see it slowly. And again, if there's another one called Via de Albuquerque that I appeared in, I can do that too. And then my contact information through email for the poster map if people want it. Although
Melinda, I sent you an email. I forwarded you the email that has the YouTube link. And
Okay.
if you scroll down below the YouTube link, you'll also see Roberto's email address as well.
Perfect. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
And
Definitely
maybe,
wanna connect.
yeah, maybe we could forward that to Priscilla as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right.
I will.
Thank you.
thank you. And thank you to my invitee Manuel as well.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.